Yes, people. What's going on? Welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to Saeed TV. We are live for another stream, and we have got a very, very interesting stream, people. And we got the guys from weTalkAjax in the building. Ajax fans, obviously, former Ten Hag manager over at Ajax, and we want to hear a little bit more about Ten Hag, a little bit more about Anthony, Gravenberch links as well, and so much other more. We got Juan in the building as well. Juan, how are you?
Good. How are you? Nice intro, by the way. First time I saw it. So.
Nah, appreciate it, man. I appreciate the intro, man. You know, I mean, you have to spice it up on the channel, man. We've got Kabir in the building. Kabir, how are you?
All good, all good. Looking forward to getting stuck into discussions about Ten Hag and Anthony.
Yeah, definitely. There's going to be a lot of comments coming in as well. So make sure you do get your comments in. Anything that you want to talk about, get in the comments, people. Interactive show. And Luke, how are you, mate? Everything all good?
Yeah, I'm all good, man. How are you?
Yeah, not too bad, man. Not too bad. Difficult. I think I'm getting better after the game. I think we're ready for Nottingham Forest on Saturday. But yeah, I want to get your guys' opinion on what you've seen of Ten Hag, you know, last season and towards this season. Juan, what have you made of the United Ten Hag rather than the Ajax Ten Hag? What have you made of United's Ten Hag last season and just generally this season as well?
Yeah, Saeed, before I comment on this, I just want to apologize up front because Dutch people might be very direct, very critical. So I'm not going to sugarcoat it. So if I say something that might upset you because you guys are fans of Ajax, I'm sorry, United, I really apologize for that. So just all right, just saying that up front. The United of Ten Hag, we have to look. It's very complicated, right? Because when he stepped in, United was a mess. We know how the season was before he stepped in. So he kind of, in my opinion, pulled a miracle a little bit. Also considering everything around United, the players, but also the ownership, which is still lagging right now. And he pulled off like top four, third position, which is really good. In my opinion, but you're going into the next season and you have to step up also in terms of your organization, in terms of your players, because you can say, looking back at last season, from my point of view, that he brought some kind of freshness to the team, to the players, you know, and of course he bought some players as well. Let's be honest about that. But the players that you guys all thought were dead wood the season before, all of a sudden they could play football again. So this is because I think of the freshness that he brought to the team and everything. But a quality of a player, more or less, is a quality of a player. And if you want to step up in terms of your team and you want to go even higher than last season, then you have to do different stuff. And it also comes down to recruitment, in my opinion. And I think this is a very big issue at the moment at United, because everybody is looking at the gameplay and at the players that are playing right now. But this team is unbalanced, to be honest. So that's my opinion.
Absolutely. No, I agree. Very, very unbalanced. But that's where I want to pick into that because he has brought his own players as well in that. Luke, is it any different from the team again, philosophy-wise? Is it different from the Ajax team? Or do you still see principles in what he's doing at Man United?
Last season, you can see there were still principles. He likes runners from the 10. You know, sometimes like without Weghorst, when he brought him in, he liked him to come deep, hold the ball, and allow runners beyond, because he likes his transitional football at times. At Ajax, he had like Mazraoui was able to go overlap, he was able to underlap, get in the box, and Gravenberch being a kind of box-to-box player, he often got to the edge of the box, got in the box, as well as the 10. When Van der Beek was there, he was the one running behind in the Champions League, mainly when Tadic was the false 9 at times. He would drop deep, receive the ball, Van der Beek would go on behind. Berghuis has done the same. So you can see, even when Weghorst was there, you can see that there's runners from players trying to get into the box. But like Juan said, I think it's just a thing of balance.
Yeah, absolutely. Kabir, I mean, you know, last season, you know, Juan talked about miracles and whatnot, and I could understand that because there was a lot of deadwood in the squad, but he created a lot of, You're looking at Rashford's form. You're looking at Wan-Bissaka a bit more polished in his game, and it kind of gets to a point now where, you need better quality players, Kabir.
Yeah,
When you look at this Man United team, does it resemble a Ten Hag team, though, to you? Like, when you look at, obviously, he's brought in his players, and we've talked about them once, but does it resemble a Ten Hag team, or is he probably not got what he wanted to?
yeah, I think it resembled more last year, definitely, mirroring what Juan said in terms of what he was able to achieve in year one. I think the main thing was that team spirit. I think one of the things he picked up on when he joined United pretty early on was the fact that, there were sort of 11 individuals on the pitch. And he really brought that sort of team spirit, playing for one another. And I think that actually allowed you guys to win games, which in seasons before it probably would have been a draw, it would have been a loss. So I definitely see that fighting spirit in terms of playing as a team, resembling what he brought to us when he was manager of us. But obviously, in terms of the styles of play, the intricacy is somewhat different, because obviously he was dealing with different players that were coming through the ranks. Maybe understanding how to build up from the back, technically maybe a bit more astute across the board. So he was able to play a little bit more the style that he wants when he was at Ajax. But yeah, there are some resemblances, but I definitely wouldn't say it's a like-for-like team.
Saeed, can I ask you something, by the way? Because it will make me understand a little bit more what's going on behind the scenes. Look, from time to time, we watch United play, so we see what's happening on the pitch. But in terms of recruitment, I never really got, understood what's going on. So who does the recruitment at United? Who's responsible? Is it Ten Hag?
This is a funny question. So I think it's Ten Hag, but he has John Murtough, who's the director of football at Manchester United. But what I believe is happening is that Ten Hag has looked at the recruitment of Man United in the past years, and now he's taking more of a control. You're looking at the guys who are coming in now. Onana, he knows him from Ajax days. Anthony, he knows him. Lisandro, even Mason Mount, you would argue from Vitesse, he kind of knows him. There's key elements of what he's doing now is down to his own. Obviously, we have the John Murtough to help him out with negotiations, but he, for me, looks like the one that's driving the recruitment. That's where the fan base are kind of looking at and thinking, yeah, it's a lot of players he brought in. Mason Mount, Anthony, which we'll discuss, that are his players. And has it made us better in that regard? And that's where maybe the fan base is now looking at him and saying, well, this is your guys. You should make these guys, either we play better with them or the system around it works better. But it is a testament of how bad the structure has been beforehand. That the fact that he is now taking control of the recruitment. It should be a balance. I mean, at Ajax, did he have Overmars or was it someone else who was helping him? What was the situation there?
Yeah, so the situation with Overmars was that both of them had a say in the signings, but they both had to agree on it. So if one would agree only and the other would not agree, they won't get that player. So I'm questioning whether that's the same at United. And I think personally, because there were some questionable signings during his tenure at Ajax, which were also related to his previous coaching at Utrecht or even Haller, which was successful, to be honest. But Haller was, basically signed because of him. And he was terrible in the Premier League, but he did very well at Ajax. But we had players like coming from Utrecht, which they didn't show anything. They were just sitting there, which were Ten Hag's choices, basically. So in my opinion, this is very dangerous. And I think this might be an issue for you guys going forward. If it's the case that Ten Hag has full say or majority of the say in the signings, and you can see it, all the players, like you mentioned, are players that he knows, more or less. I don't think that's a good thing because you don't see any other top teams doing that. They really recruit and they see what they need and they try to go somewhere with that team and try to recruit players for a certain system or playing style. And looking at what Ten Hag is doing, also like in terms of like the striker situation, but also Mason Mount. I'm not saying they're bad players, but these are not, in my opinion, these are like not questionable, but gambles a little bit, in my opinion, because you guys need direct reinforcements to be able to, stick in the top 4 position and fight it with Arsenal and City. I mean, that's what you eventually want to do, right?
Yeah, no, absolutely. That's the aim, but I think we're a bit far behind in that element. I want to ask you, Luke. When Ten Hag says he wants us to be the best transition team in the league, when you look at that style of football, did you like that at Ajax, or Did you like the 18-19 teams and where he had a bit of control? Because for me, when I enjoy football is when you have an element of control. You know what I mean? It's not like the midfield you are seeing right now where Casemiro is on his own and Mount and Bruno are pushing high up the pitch and they don't get back in and then it gets exposed. What do you think about the transition football and where Ten Hag philosophy fits around that?
Personally, I'm a big advocate for possession football. I'm a coach, so like I like the whole possession thing. But you have to be able to have a target and know what you want to achieve with it. It can't just be keep the ball. It needs to be we're working the ball to create space to move the ball on. With the transitional style, I think it's more about the counter pressing. He loves a counter press. He loves players that work hard and will press from the front, win the ball high, and attack. But like I said, he likes runners off the ball. So as soon as you can win the ball high, he wants runners to go in behind and get fill the box up. Because the amount of times I saw Antony get the ball out wide and put a ball in for Haller, but then if Haller wasn't getting onto it, it would be Tadic at the left stick, or Gravenberch will come in from deep into the box, and there was lots of players already in the box to try and get the second or third loose balls to score a goal. So I think it's a bit of a misconception because there was still a lot of control. Ajax still did dominate the ball. But it's more of a, if we've got the ball, we're going to push the team in their own half and play really, really high. If you win it really high, and that's when the transition comes in, going in behind, trying to score the goal and trying to get bodies forward. So.
No, absolutely. There's a super chat I want to bring in. Big up to United all the way. He says, Ten Hag has been a double agent for Ajax. He gave 90 million for Antony, who might be the worst winger I've ever seen. Even his stats at Ajax 21-22 were quite ordinary. 15 GA in all competitions. Let's talk about Antony because, boy, listen, I wasn't in favor of bringing Antony. I don't think it was on my top 5 wingers to probably come to Manchester United. But you have to back the manager. You have to back his philosophy. And if it means he brings in his guys, then we see. First season, I want to say it was a bad season, but it was a very average season. Didn't really get the GA that we wanted, but helped the balance of the team in a sense of what Ten Hag wanted, he gave us. And I'm going to come to you, Kabir, first, and I want everyone's opinions on this. But Kabir, you guys, obviously, we paid a lot of money for Antony, 90-odd million. But what are his attributes? Like, are we missing something from Antony? Like, what is it like? What's he giving us that we can hope for or something?
Yeah, look, you definitely overpaid by probably 40, 50 million. But I think you guys came in, what was it, the last day of the transfer window? So it was,
true.
The market demanded that we had to squeeze as much as we could out of you guys for it. But look, yeah, I know what you mean. I mean, it wasn't a season that you'd expect for someone that cost 90-odd million. He scored some important goals and he had, bits and pieces where people, okay, we can see the potential. But what does he bring? I mean, what we saw as Ajax fans for when he was with us, we saw a lot of trickery. We saw a lot of pace. We saw someone with a lot of confidence with the ball at his feet. Someone that was willing to take on his man, someone that could pass his man quite easily. And like Luke was saying, he cuts in on his left foot and he, ping a ball in the box for Haller inevitably. Or one or two of the other guys to be at the end of it, and therefore his stats look good. There's a lot of passion, there's a lot of fire and a lot of determination in him as well. But look, I personally feel that, a step to the Premier League, certainly a team like Manchester United was probably one step too much at this stage in his career. It probably would have made sense to, naturally maybe to go to like a Spanish club. But if he was to go to the Premier League, maybe, one rung lower and then work his way up. But obviously, Erik ten Hag wanted his man. What I would say is have patience. This is the season where he has to deliver, right? First season, you say, okay, you get used to the league, you get used to the pace, you get used to the intensity. But now he has to really understand what it takes to perform at a top club, where there's expectation, where you have to get efficient as well in your game. You can't just be, doing the odd skill here and there and scoring 1 goal in 4 games or 1 assist every 2-3 games. You have to deliver. So this is the season.
I mean, Juan, has he got a right foot? Have you seen his right foot? Like, give me an instance where he uses his right foot, because brother, this guy does not use his right foot. I think ultimately, we're never gonna get the 90 million. We're never gonna get the 90 million.
Never say never. But look, I'm gonna come down a little bit to the tactics. Also, I think also Luke started about this. This is very important, in my opinion, to talk about it as well, because Antony, in my opinion, is not you can, of course, you can pinpoint him and you can say he's not delivering. I totally agree. But he came in at an Ajax system that was already working. And what Luc also said, so you had like two, basically during Ten Hag's tenure, you had two systems. Let me put it this way, just to simplify. You had the 18-19 season, but that's like a unique situation because we only had ballers. Like everybody on that pitch could play football. And then you have like 2 years later, 3 years later, you have like the Anthony team. And the Anthony team had basically a midfield, which was with Edson Alvarez, who now went to West Ham United. He's not known for being very comfortable with the ball. So our midfield wasn't as comfortable with the ball anymore as before, as the 18-19 season. But what did Ten Hag come up with? He came up with our wingbacks who were very good on the ball. We had Mazraoui on the right. We had Blind on the left. And the reason why I'm saying that is because their connection with the wingers was very important in a certain way. And especially on the right side, Mazraoui would always go. So what Anthony would do is stretch a little bit the pitch, staying very wide, and then Mazraoui would go inverted, and it would create a lot of space. And also, not only that, but you could also play on opponent's half, create triangles, overloads, etc., etc. So this whole situation was based on a system that Ten Hag implemented. So Anthony was never a single-handed player that would just steal the show and score all the goals and back all the assists and all these kind of things. He never was that player. So in my opinion, what's happening right now is because of United being unbalanced, and we could talk about that in a bit, how I see it, but Anthony will not perform. And not only Anthony, there are other players as well. So if you look at your wingers, for instance, they're good, they're athletic, they're physical, they can go up and down, but they're not very good technically on the ball. And if you look at your midfield, you almost have the same situation. Casemiro is pretty good. He is, but he's not a technically gifted player. We know that. Eriksen is very important, was very important last season for you guys, and he actually is instrumental in my point of view. But now, let's say you guys go and get Amrabat, for instance. Amrabat is also a holding midfielder. So what would happen in that midfield? It becomes even more rigid, in my opinion. Yep. You understand what I mean? Yep. So the Ten Hag ball, like we know from Ajax, you have to have at least 8, 9, 18-19 season, 11 very good players on the ball. And you don't have that right now. So, again, it comes down to the players that you have. I'm not saying the players of United are crap or anything like that. I'm sorry for that. But I'm just saying that that eventually where Ten Hag wants to go, you're miles away from that. And that's the problem. And it has to do with recruitment. And if Ten Hag is the one being given the keys to do the recruitment, I don't think that's sensible. But also, we don't know if he has full authority to get whoever he wants to get. So again, maybe I went a little bit too far with this one, but that's what I think.
No. I think you summed it up quite well. I think ultimately, I think he's caught in crossroad between what does he do. He has to look at the style of play in the Premier League, but he also has to look at what he wants to do. I think what he realizes in the Premier League is very physical, very, very demanding. So maybe his element of control might not work. And that idea, and I'll come to you, Luke, next, is that when you win the ball and you counter press from the front, you need to. But for me, if you're going to do that, though, you have to have good players that can do that. I mean, when you look at Mason Mount and the players that he's bought in, do you see that in there? Like I just, for me, I don't see it. And what United lacked last year, did it need a Mason Mount or did it need better quality players in that area? What do you think?
I just want to touch on what Juan said. 100% about the balance of the team and about Anthony was a facilitator for other players to move and play well. It's a bit like when you watch Saka. Yes, Saka could beat a man. He's got 2 feet a lot of the time, but most of the time, him and Martinelli stay really wide, don't they? He stays really wide. Ben White comes inside, goes overlaps, or whoever the right back is. It was the same thing, but the problem is at Man United is the Wan-Bissaka has no technique. He's a really good defender, very, very quick, but you don't see him go forward, go inside, go outside. So who's moving around Anthony, right? So Anthony was never that, like Juan said, never, meant to be quick for the Premier League and things like that. And it's the same thing with Mason Mount. He's been signed. Okay, he's a decent, good footballer, right? But he doesn't have that dominant presence in midfield. Not like if you look at like Declan Rice does, or if you look at Moises Caicedo that's gone to Chelsea, Gravenberch, who just obviously went to Bayern. in recent years. So he doesn't have that presence in midfield next to Casemiro to allow to be dominant on the ball, win the ball every time, and go up to the edge of the box and things like that. And it doesn't help also with the balance of your wide areas. You've got Luke Shaw that likes to overlap, and you have Rashford when he does play wide. He's better when he's towards goal, in the middle, in the half space, ready to get a shot off. But then Antony stays really, really, really wide. But then no one's penetrating that space in that half space on like Rashford is on the other side. So there's a gap and it's a bit just all over the place. Bruno can, but Bruno's kind of a bit of a free roam. So I feel like the balance is just so off, and it's also a personnel situation. I just don't think Mount is that centre mid you need next to Casemiro.
Mm-hmm. Let's talk about the midfield, Kabir. Do you understand what he's doing in that midfield, the manager, when you look at Casemiro in there? I know he probably wasn't going to sign Casemiro at first. He was looking at De Jong as a situation. But that midfield there for you, like, how do you look at that midfield? Because I'm not going to lie to you, it hurts my eyes, like, to have Casemiro on his own and then two eights who are just very, very, at the end and want to get into the box. Like, is that an issue for Man United? And do they need to resolve that? What's your opinion on that?
I think so. I think that it's obviously quite a bit different to what he had at Ajax with the midfield that we had in that magical season 18-19. I think obviously, as Juan was saying, there's a lot of rigidity in that midfield. And I don't think that there's, any sort of sense of fluidity coming from there. But then also, for someone like a Casemiro, he, was heralded when, he towards the end of last season. At first, there was obviously a lot of, I guess people were a little bit worried about, what do we need like that? We were, we were after Frenkie de Jong, and then all of a sudden Casemiro came in, two completely different midfielders. But I think that he obviously brought a lot to the team. And I think that's the one thing that Ten Hag wanted to make sure was actually right from the get-go, the mentality, to bring winners into the squad, into the team, to know what it's like to actually win a game over 90 minutes. And I know that sounds very basic, but that's probably what Manchester United were missing a lot. So yeah, I think in terms of actually the type of football that he wants to get to, this midfield has to change. And like Juan was saying as well, I mean, if you bring someone like an Amrabat, you're going to get even more, it's going to be less fluid, and it's going to be too rigid. So ultimately, I think that, someone like a Frenkie de Jong, I know it's very easy to say that there aren't very many Frenkie de Jongs around, but that's why someone like an Eriksen is very key. He can play out of pressure. He's obviously technically very gifted. And then you're getting closer to the style of play that, was so successful for Ajax. Also keeping control of the ball, playing into half spaces, playing possession, forming triangles. That's something that ultimately can break down your opponents in a much more effective way than what's happening now with the type of football that you have to play.
Absolutely. No, you're correct. 19, he says here, preach, Juan. This is the truth at the end of the day. And every manager who comes here will play for the undoing of the Glazers. Yes, absolutely. I think the situation hasn't helped. We were meant to get new owners this summer. That would have definitely changed the recruitment style and the budget. It's not been a great one in that aspect. But he has let go of the keeper in Onana. Juan, there's a big situation there for the manager, and he's wanted Onana. What can we expect from Onana in terms of the style of play? Like, do you think? Did you miss him, by the way? Obviously, he was a former Ajax player as well.
That's a loaded question, by the way.
Yeah. He left on a very bad. He didn't leave on a good. How did you say it?
Good terms.
Good terms. Let me put it mildly. But apart from that, outstanding goalkeeper. Honestly, he's an upgrade compared to who you had last season, David De Gea. But look, that signing makes a lot of sense, so I will not question it. But let me give you an example, right? We're talking about the midfield. So you get Mason Mount, and I do understand why he signed Mason Mount in terms of profile. He's looking to add more creativity on the midfield. If you look at last season, basically all the creativity came from Bruno. And your only striker who was bagging in goals almost was Rashford. So you were very dependent on those two players. So I do understand that he took lessons, Ten Hag took lessons from last season. And he was thinking like, look, I have to change something. I have to make it less dependable on only two players when we go into attack. Now, coming back to Amrabat, I don't think it's a bad signing. If you would end up signing Amrabat, it would be good, but it will help you more on the pressing side and defensive stability, but not so much on the attacking purpose of going up front. So what I don't understand is, okay, you go for Mason Mount, that's possible, but there's so many technical players, especially like in Germany. If you look at Donny Olmo from Leipzig, if you look at Julian Brandt from Dortmund, if you look at even a huge talent, although he had an ACL injury, so I don't know if he's right there yet, but he's 20 years old, Florian Wirtz from Leverkusen. These players are the players you guys should go for. These are the players that would bring intelligence, football, technical ability on the midfield. So if I was to ring up Ten Hag, I would tell him, look at those players, on the midfield. Or, like I said, you go back to the Ajax system and you look at wing backs, but those are harder to get, which are very good athletic, like going back and forth, physical, defending, and also on the ball. That's a very difficult profile to get on the market. So I would go on the midfield if it was up to me.
The problem is, a lot of people are discussing whether Ten Hag's talent ID is very, very great because he doesn't really go for players that out, like, Florian Wirtz. I could never imagine Manchester United going getting that. Whether that's down to him or whether it's down to the recruitment team cannot get that and he doesn't trust the recruitment team. But, Luke, I come to you, but like he's got former Ajax players in or players that he knows. That's pretty much it right now. So everybody's looking at it thinking, is he going to go and get another player? Like even Amrabat, he managed him at Utrecht. Weghorst, I think did he not manage him somewhere? I don't know what happened. But, is that frustration? Do you understand the frustration from the fan base when he's only going for players that he knows from, either Dutch league or just in general,
I can understand it because obviously there's a mass difference between the Premier League and Eredivisie. There's huge golfing class. The Premier League's more competitive. It's the biggest league in the world, etc., etc. In recent years, a lot of players have come to Ajax in the hope of moving to the Premier League or to the league or something. So I guess that's how the Eredivisie gets viewed, sadly. But there's a massive golfing class, and you'd hope that Ten Hag would bring in like the names like Casemiro if they worked alongside the names like Lissandro, because obviously no one knew how Martinez was going to do in the Premier League. Everyone was saying he was too small, but obviously he's proven everyone wrong. Very, very good defender, very aggressive. So you would hope he would have that balance. But I'm not so much on the same wavelength as Juan with the types of player. More, I think they need more of a ball carrier. Like I can see why they signed Mount, and I'm not saying like Brandt can't, etc. can't carry the ball, but you need a bit more of a physical carrier, like Caicedo was able to do for Brighton, just like for Chelsea. Do you know what I mean? To add a bit more combativeness in midfield and be able to carry the ball, because that's what Gravenberch did for Ajax. When he was next to Alvarez, he would get the ball quite deep from Alvarez because Alvarez obviously was limited. Drive with the ball at times, as far as he could, then move the ball on. And sometimes I feel like Mason Mount doesn't have that confidence maybe yet to be able to get that ball because he's still learning the position, because I don't think he played as deep for Chelsea. So to get the ball and to drive with it. So to finish on that, I'd hope that he would bring in some good names, some names that everyone would be excited to see play and to hear, alongside other players that he knows, just to add that good mix. Because at the moment, obviously, we keep saying there's just not a good mix and it's not a good balance of the team. So,
absolutely. A name that is mentioned is another one, a former Ajax player, is Ryan Gravenberch. Kabir, what can you tell us about Gravenberch? I think for me, I don't know why he went to Bayern Munich, because I just thought always to myself, like, would he really be a first teamer, over there? And it's not been the same for him. Again, Ryan Gravenberch, is he someone that could complement this midfield, or have we already got that in Mason Mount? Do you think he's what United should be going for, Ryan Gravenberch?
I think United should be going for that type of profile player. I just worry for United fans that Ryan Gravenberch isn't going to be able to bring that impact that team needs at this moment in time. You got to remember, he's a guy that came through the ranks at Ajax. He probably left one season too early. Bayern Munich came calling. He got tempted by it, but look what happened. He went to a bigger club in a better league, and he was benched for pretty much the majority of the season. I just don't see how someone like him can come to an even stronger league, to an arguably even bigger club with more expectation, and deliver from day one. And my concern is that, whilst he has the credentials, he's super comfortable on the ball, he's tall, he's athletic, he can be physical if he needs to, he can carry the ball at his feet, excellent. So, Frankie de Jong-esque, I'm not going to say he's like him, but Frankie de Jong-esque. But to then, have that impact that United fans crave, I just don't see that happening. So I can just see it actually being another disaster waiting to happen. That's my personal opinion. But if you're looking for someone for the longer term, then yeah, he can mature into that type of player. But impact from day one, I just see it's a bit of a disaster waiting to happen.
Do you agree with that, Luke? Yeah, I see you shaking your head there.
Yeah, it's a bit like Renato Sanchez. He got moved around quite early in his career, and moved from club to club on loan to loan, and never really got that consistent game time to really build up his repertoire and get what he needs from experience to really become a top player. As of yet, he's obviously still very young, and like Kabir said, he left one year too early. I reckon if he stayed a bit more, another year at least, he'd have been able to fine tune some things in his game and then make the next move.
Absolutely. You know what it is with Ryan Gravenberch? Like I said, maybe it's too similar, Juan, in terms of what we've got. And, I think by United, as much as we say Amrabat would give us, the kind of, not stability in midfield, I think also we need that protection in the back four. Because I think with Casemiro, he can't play every single game. There's going to be rotation with the Champions League, But I think the midfield, Gravenberch, do you reckon he'd be willing to leave Bayern Munich? What do you know about him in terms of his mental frame and his ambition? Is he someone that is willing to come back for Ten Hag and help him out?
Yeah, I think so. I think I have to be careful here because there is a little bit of a history. But look, I have to go back a little bit to Gravenberch coming up to ranks with Ajax. It was too easy for him. So he's the youngest to make his debut at Ajax ever, 16 years of age, even younger than Clarence Seedorf. And it was too easy for him. However, the last season before he left, there was an interview with his father, and his father actually said that Ten Hag at the time gave him a very conservative role on the left side, and that had to do with Blind was our left back, and Blind was not a very fast player. So Gravenberch had to stay in that zone to protect him, and he couldn't go up front a lot. So he had to be very, again, conservative in his role. I don't think Gravenberch liked that because he likes to carry the ball and go up front a little bit more. In terms of his output, goals, assists, he's never been there. Even before that, he never scores a lot of goals, never gives a lot of assists. However, in terms of profile, if you look at the midfielders at United, he offers something different because he's also able to pick up the ball from the back line and start the build up. So you won't be very dependable only on, let's say, Lisandro Martinez or any other player from the back line. So he does offer something different. However, I'm questioning if you haven't played, a lot with Bayern Munich, and also he wasn't a standout player. He was a good player at Ajax, but he wasn't a standout player yet. And also, I question whether he's ready because his handling speed is not that high, in my opinion. Like if you compare it, like Kabir said, he's similar a little bit maybe to Frankie de Jong. Yes, but Frankie de Jong does stuff like at a higher level, quicker than Gravenberch does. And I don't think whether that fits in the Premier League. So that's my question. If you cannot make it in the Bundesliga with Bayern, I don't see it happening at a top club in the Premier League. But hey, I can be off. Maybe not now. He's still young. Again, he's still young. But my question is, again, I'm coming back. I'm repeating myself. Are you guys okay if Ten Hag would sign like all potential players? Let's say you guys also bought a striker now, a Danish striker. Also a potential. It's a lot of money for somebody that is not proven yet, but you guys are going that direction. Would you be okay with that? Or do you want players that come in and really show right away, hey, ready to go?
I think there's always got to be a balance. There's always got to be a balance. But again, I think the signing would be a loan, but then again, obviously, would be an option to buy. But I look at the Donny van de Beek situation, man, and I'm not gonna lie to you, man. That was another player that I had high hopes for, and he didn't deliver. I think football is also physical, but it's also mental as well. Have you got the know-how to be at a big club like Man United? And Donny van de Beek, he hasn't been given opportunities. His confidence went down. I don't know what level of confidence Gravenberch is in. I mean, I look at our Bayern team, and I think they've got Goretzka in midfield. I don't really fancy him. They've also got, obviously, Kimmich, who's a very, very top defender. But they've also got Lima, and they'll look to improve in that area as well. So I look at it and I think, again, Ten Hag will have to transform his game and bring back the confidence again. But it comes back down to timing. You know, this is an unforgiving league. The Premier League is very, very unforgiving. You know, so you have to be very, very on it. You know, that's just the way I can look at it. You know, Donny, it hasn't worked out. I mean, would you guys take that back, Donny? By the way, would you take him back, or are you guys done?
The crazy thing about Donny van der Beek is, you know, every time I heard people talking about that 18-19 season, there was always three players that were just like everyone thought crazy about. It was Matthijs de Ligt, Frenkie de Jong, and it was Donny van der Beek. And he was always the last one. He was always the third player. You know, he was always behind the other two in terms of how big he was in the team. And he did score goals coming from the 10 position and behind and things like that. But you know, he wasn't like he made a huge difference in every single game. Not though it didn't have an impact on every single game. I meant not like Frenkie did and Matthijs de Ligt did in specific games, Bayern Munich and Juventus in the Champions League and things like that. You know, so Donny van der Beek. The thing is the way that we're going now. I think with Sven Mislintat's targeting younger players. So then he can obviously grow them into the team, give them first team games and starting a new project. So I think bringing Van der Beek back would go against that and take game time away from someone else that we bought, I think.
Yeah, we have also...
I think...
Yeah, go ahead, Kabir.
No, I was going to say, I think any Ajax player would say the heart says yes, but the head says no when it comes to Donny van der Beek, you know. I feel a bit bad for him because I don't even think Ole wanted him. I think United wanted to make a signing. You know, they bought someone from that famed season, but he was completely out of place. Donny van der Beek is someone that he runs into the gaps, right? He won't ghost past a player. He won't necessarily, 30-yard passes or whatnot. He will run into space, you know? And I feel like the system just didn't suit that. And then if you can't play to your strengths and that's what you bring to the party, then you're quickly going to be considered a flop and, not ineffective, basically.
No, yeah, look,
absolutely.
Again, coming back to the 18-19 season, all of them were ballers, but not only that, all the players had a certain quality and that together, a role, exactly, and that complemented each other. That's what I'm trying to say, I think also when you talk about Antony, for instance, or other players that are not performing, the coach has to think of something like, okay, what should I do to get most out of a player in a certain system or in a certain position? That's basically what the coach does all the time. There is no player that's perfect and can do everything. That doesn't exist. So, and that's difficult because, again, if you look at the personnel, if you look at the players that you have, I think creativity-wise, also the striker position, I think, you guys are too dependent on maybe one or two players still, in my opinion.
So I'm saying we're not a team. Yeah, absolutely. It's not. But then I'm not gonna lie to you. I'm looking at the Ajax now. I don't know if you've seen, but West Ham second bid for Kudus was also higher than Brighton's bid. Position changed now. It's not enough to sell. So, I was thinking that maybe the manager might go for Gravenberch as well. So, it's another player that again could be looking like he could be leaving Ajax. But I want to go back to the manager. There's a lot of talk about him being very, very stubborn in his ways, and the fan base are not very happy in that, Luke. And I'll come to you next. Like, is Ten Hag a stubborn manager? And is it for the good or is it for the bad? Like, what is there a mixture of it? Both.
Yes and no. I feel like he's very stubborn with things. There was a thing where he liked to make substitutions until like quite late in games. That was one thing that really annoyed fans. He would just do like subs just for no reason. You get to the 60th minute, 70th minute, if someone's tired, you take them off. He would just keep them on. And I think it was because he didn't want to let go of if he was in control of the game, and logically it makes sense. You don't want to take players or bring players on that can't adjust to the game quick enough, lose control of the game, and then end up being on the back foot, especially if you're winning by one goal or something. But also at the same time, when Ajax played, when Juan said there was like two playing styles for two different eras, there was a lot of free play. You saw a lot of freedom in the final third at times. And I feel like he was very stubborn that he wants hard work and work ethics and good personalities, professionals as an atmosphere. If you look at Arsenal, for example, they changed everything and they made it into one atmosphere. And he follows the same thesis essentially. And I think he's stubborn on that. And but I feel like it's in certain areas. When it comes to playing from the back, for example, you have to be very rigid, very structured. You have to do it a certain way, get to the final third, then you could be free. I don't feel like he's do this, do that in every single moment of the game. But I feel there's times when he can be stubborn, especially with the substitutes when he was at Ajax. So.
Because I look at sometimes, I think, he plays sometimes the same team, especially the midfield for me. Come to you, Kabir, and I look at him and like, come on, Ten Hag, it's not going to work. That you can clearly see it's not going to work. And then we lose against Tottenham, even though for me the first half was very, very good. But again, there's been a lot of beatdowns, last season, a lot of bad results. And for me, I think, is he one of them where he's going to down the hill with certain players? Was he like that with certain players at Ajax, Kabir? Like, certain players were kept starting even though they weren't on form, but they were helpful for the system.
Yeah, I think it's a little bit. Yeah, I mean, to answer your question, I think he's an incredibly stubborn manager. But I think that's because we'd always laughed at him in Holland because one of the things that he would say all the time was process. In every answer he'd give, he used the word process the whole time because he just has a very rigid thought process about what he wants to achieve and how he wants to achieve it, and whether that's off the pitch or on the pitch. And yeah, I think that there were probably times where, players weren't performing to the level that maybe we were accustomed to, but he would still keep them on or give them game time. But it's obviously a little bit different with a club like Ajax than it is United, right? We don't have, probably the quality in squad compared to, let's say, United. So, we're more reliant on certain players than maybe you guys might be. So maybe he felt like he was compelled to play certain players. But yeah, I think in terms of, well, I mean, to be honest with you, I personally felt that he was someone, through his stubbornness, through his style of play, he actually improved players. Now, hopefully we'll see that for you guys at United. But I don't think that United fans should see that stubbornness as a negative thing. Actually, I think that, I know we're early on in season 2 and you guys have just come off the back of a bad loss at Tottenham. I know that, take it from an Ajax fan, losing to Tottenham, it can drive you crazy. But but give it some time. Because I think that stubbornness will result into positivity by way of results. People become, players understanding the system better and also improving.
No, 100%. I agree with you in that aspect. Like, stubbornness can be also good as well, because then that means at least he knows that, he's keen on his ideologies. I don't want a guy who is just gonna let go of his philosophy just for the sake of the players. I want him to kind of carry. But then again, there was a kind of concerning interview he did. I think was it just before the game against Wolves? He said, there's some players might not fit my philosophy, so I have to adhere to that, and that was a bit concerning, but overall, I think for me, he has shown that he's sticking to it, which again, it can be good, but it can also be bad. So there's a lot of contrasting elements to that. But go for it.
Just to jump on that quickly, I mean, one of the things that actually the biggest point of criticism that's come out recently in relation to Dutch managers that have gone abroad is that they have stuck rigidly to the way that they want to play, total football, pressing, fluid, and actually they've gone to foreign competitions and not done well at all. So actually someone like an Erik ten Hag saying that, look, I have my principles, I have the style of football that I want to play, but I also need to understand that I need to be realistic with the personnel that I've got. That's a good thing. That's someone that's actually just being realistic of the situation, understanding this is what the situation needs now. And on the training ground, I can implement what I need to. And when I feel like the squad understand what I want them to do, then we can start playing the way I want them to. But it's good that he has that sense of realism.
Sorry,
yeah,
can I
100%. You got
add on as well? Sorry, talking about going off what Kabir said as well. I think Man United fans need to obviously understand and grasp the situation that you can't get rid of every player in one transfer window. Yeah, so there are going to be times where, okay, so for example, Wan-Bissaka, he might. I actually had Mazraoui, he was able to come in, come out, and do all sorts. Wan-Bissaka's limited, great defender, absolutely great one-on-one defender, very, very quick, very strong. Limited technically, so you're going to have to deal with until we can find a right back that's suitable for the system. It's not going to happen all in
got
1
Dalot
year
as well. Do you think Dalot's good?
I mean, I think he'll do a better job for Ten Hag in terms of what he wants on the ball than Wan-Bissaka, but then you're then taking away defensively how good Wan-Bissaka is and risking that.
There you go. Yeah.
It's football though, but you can't. If you're perfect attacking and perfect defending, you'd win everything every year. Do you know what I mean? So, but I think United fans need to just understand that Kabir was saying about process. It is a process, and there needs to be a certain amount of patience to an extent. Where I mean, you won a cup last year, and you got Champions League football, so it's not like it's absolutely rubbish the whole season. So you have to, and it's I know you don't want to lose to Tottenham, and you only won 1-0 against Wolves and things like that, but it does take time, and you're not going to be able to get rid of like every single player. Some players will have to play in the system and try to adapt to it until they can get it. I mean, I think Cedric's still at Arsenal somehow, and he's been there since Arteta's been there, and he's still there. So some players will have to play just so they can cover in the system until they can get his players to fit the system, for example. Do you know what I mean?
No, 100%. I agree. It's not going to be a miracle. You know what I mean? It's not going to be a turnover straight away, and that's where, for me, the next question comes in. And by the way, there's over 700 people in here. Let's get the likes up, people. So if you're watching right now, please do smash the like button on the video, and make sure you guys are following weTalkAjax. Link is in the title. Follow their channel if you want all the latest Ajax news. And you never know, we might be buying a player from Ajax. So yeah, maybe make sure you follow their channel. But yeah, do like the video, people. I ask you quite when you look at the fan base and they're impatient. We just watched Man City win a treble. It's not. I mean, it is. Yeah, it's very, very easy to kind of maybe say, trust the process, trust the manager. When you see down the road, they're winning stuff, and they need to see what this manager can bring. Like, what would you say to the fan base? Because I know you've seen a lot on social media, etc., etc. Like, what do you think the fan base are they overreacting, or are they justified? That isn't maybe good enough in the next season. Now we're in second season of Ten Hag.
I think it's somewhere in the middle, to be honest, if I were a United fan, because I am frustrated for you guys in terms of the personnel and the recruitment and stuff like that, because I don't agree with what's happening in terms of your recruitment. Like, why do you get the Danish player as an example? Why don't you get Osimhen from Napoli, who proved himself in the Champions League and he top scorer of Italy? Like, if you're paying so much money for a Danish talent, at 20 million, 30 million, and just get Osimhen, that's more like a statement, a signature signing that fits United, in my opinion. I mean, United is a big club, act like one, also in the transfer market, and that's not happening right now. So look, I don't know if it's up completely to Ten Hag, or it's the ownership, or maybe it has to do with both. So we touched upon that before. My frustration would be regarding that specifically. Now, Ten Hag has proven at Ajax and also last season that he's able to work with what he has and maximize everything out of it. So you should be patient, but don't expect another miracle, like in the sense that you're going to compete for the title, or you're going to do like very well in the Champions League or stuff like that, if certain things are not sorted, to be honest. I mean, at the end of the day, there's so much you can do as a coach. Players, quality, balance, all these kind of things are very important. So yeah, he's a good coach. He's going to work it out. He will find some kind of balance. But the way I'm looking at the team right now, there are still a couple of things missing, in my opinion, to really go where you want to be.
Okay. So you said before you're going to be brutal. You're going to be honest. What's not good
Was
enough?
Was I?
Yeah. You said it. What's not good enough? Like, any players, like, name them. Anyone that you think isn't good enough to reach the standards of what is capable for Ten Hag to succeed. And even if it means that it's one of Ten Hag's favourites, what do you look at? I say it's not good enough.
Yeah, again, look, it has to do with what I said. It has to do with the total team balance. So if you take one player out, then it has to fit that system. It's also about like how they work together. If your midfield is not very comfortable on the ball, you have a rigid midfield like we talked about, then at least on the wings, you have to have people that are very good with the ball, because then you can build up, you can progress, you can do all these kind of things. If you also don't have that on the wing backs, I'm not blaming Shaw, I'm not blaming Wan-Bissaka, not at all, or Dalot, not at all. But you have to find a balance. You have to find tactical football players. If you want to dominate teams away, which is a huge problem right now, because that's where you don't get the points, you have to be comfortable. You have to be able to keep the ball in play. And that's not happening. Like I saw the Wolves game, for instance. I was shocked how many times the wrong decisions were taken in the final third. Everybody was just passing the ball to the wrong player. I mean, it was crazy. That doesn't even happen in the Eredivisie with certain teams, if I'm very honest about it. Look, that's really a very big issue, in my opinion, right now. How do you deal with the ball when you have possession, how many chances you create, and also finishing the chances? But that has to do with you don't have a lot of options in terms of strikers. The one that scores the most is Rashford. If he doesn't score, the whole fan base is like judging him. But that's not fair because he has a lot on his shoulders to carry for this team. And it's not even fair to anyone, in my opinion. Not even if you had Haaland, you cannot depend only on Haaland, in my opinion. So that's how I look at it.
No, I think that's fair. I think that's fair. I think the squad imbalance is there. You know what I mean, and it's there for everyone to see. I look at certain players who've been here for a while, and again, are they bluffing the manager, Luke? There's a lot of players who have failed under so many managers. Luke
Like
Shaw.
who? Oh, Luke Shaw. Okay.
Luke Shaw. There's a lot of players in here that's been here for a while. Maguire's been here for a while. Again, we can't get rid of him. There's a lot of players. Even when you look at now, Sancho's been here 2 years now, not really found the form. But then he did play him in a false nine throughout the whole of pre-season, and we've not seen it. So again, that's what's confusing the fan base in that regard. So when you look at the personnel in the squad, like who do you look at and say, you know what, there's hope there, and who do you think will get phased out? Like, what's your kind of squad assessment in terms of personnel?
I think your centre backs are safe for now. I think while Varane's got a couple of years left in him, I think him and Martinez. Martinez is the kind of defender that can work with anyone in a sense. He does what he needs to do. He's able to play with the ball and it always work well. As long as his partner is obviously good defensively and does their job, it would always be a good partnership. So Varane is safe. I think you'll need a Wan-Bissaka, like I said, great center defender, great right back defensively. But if you're going to have Antony stay out wide, you're going to need a right back that's going to be a bit more adventurous, going inside, coming outside, a bit more comfortable on the ball. As Juan said, you need technical players in a lot more areas than you already do. So I think your centre backs are safe. Wan-Bissaka not so much, and I think Rashford, if you play him out on the left, I think that's where he plays best as a striker. He doesn't see any of the ball. I guess Tottenham, he wasn't effective, was he? So, and that's where Højlund comes in, the new striker. And I think with the way a lot of his goals, most of them, quite a few of his goals come from him pressing the centre back in Italy, where he wins the ball high or it's come off his shin and he's able to get a touch and score. So it looks like he wants to press. So it looks like the way you're going forward is you want to box teams in and win the ball really, really high and then get bodies forward, just like Ten Hag did in that second era team with Haller and players like that. So there is hope. I think it's so key in that midfield that you find someone that's better than Mount in the midfield. It's so key because I don't see Mount being able to have that physical dominance in midfield to be able to give sufficient support for the centre backs, for Casemiro, but also being creative enough. Because against Tottenham, the amount of times I saw him play a short pass, there was no getting the ball, trying to switch the ball. There was no trying to play any percentage passes between the lines, trying to break the lines of passes. It was all quite safe. And I don't know whether that's a confidence thing, is he adapting to the role. It could be so many factors. I know there's been a bit on social media about him getting the blame and things like that and a little bit of trolling and stuff. So that might be affecting him. But, it needs to come from that midfield.
Yeah, listen, that midfield is giving me nightmares, man. And I hope, like I said, obviously he's now injured, Mason Mount, which he won't be available, I think, till after the international break. So it needs some reinforcement there. Whether we get Gravenberch or even maybe Amrabat in there, it needs to be quick, and that's where I think Ten Hag will be looking more. But Kabir, just to ask you a question, like, what about the running, the kind of the intensity? Have you been kind of not concerned in a sense by the intensity, like second half, the big results that we've lost away from home? Like, does that concern you? Have you had them performances at Ajax where been some games where you just get whooped and it's been like, wow, where's that happened from?
No, I don't think we had that at Ajax, to be honest, because obviously it's a completely different. It's like comparing apples and pears, right? The intensity levels are just way too different. If anything, we were probably complaining that most of our players were going in at 80% in most of the games.
Quickly, Kabir, we did lose in the first 6 months. We lost 6-2 in the 18-19 season, we lost 6-2 to Feyenoord.
To Feyenoord away, yeah. I mean, of course, there's the anomalies, but in terms of actually like blowing out of steam or losing that sort of level of intensity, that was never an issue. But yeah, look, I think that there probably is a little bit of that, early season as well, match fitness. It certainly seemed like you guys ran out of steam, and and then that has an adverse impact on, like Luke was saying as well, and Juan, about the effectiveness of then someone like a Rashford. Because if he's not getting fed, if he's not being able to get the ball in the right position, he's going to be rendered ineffective. And where are your goals going to come from? It's not going to come from a static midfield that you guys have, or a midfield without much imagination. So I think Ten Hag ball is all about pressing. It is all about Gegen pressing as well. It's about ensuring that level of physicality has to be very high. The level of intensity has to be very high. You got to remember also, he had a stint coaching the second team at Bayern Munich as well. So he's understanding also that German style of play as well. Where you keep going. And I think that's what he wants to bring. But yeah, it is if I was a Man United fan, I would be concerned. But also, I'd say, we're 2 games into the season. There's going to be heavier legs.
Yeah, but also I would like also to add something to the discussion, which we touched upon a little bit. You asked Kabir and Luke about stubbornness, right? Whether he's stubborn. One of the things that he does as well, which is not stubborn, or maybe it is, but it's protecting the players a lot. Not only verbally, like during a press conference, even though they're playing very bad. I think maybe the best example is Maguire. He always is, saying positive things about him, but everybody knows deep down that he's not really valued by Ten Hag, because, he could leave basically in the summer. But coming back, one of the things that he did at Ajax a lot was he gave certain players a bunch of games to prove themselves, And if I go back to United now and I look at the front line, we haven't even touched about Martial or what's the other player's name? Who was sent away last season to train separately and then came back. What's his name? He plays up front as well.
We got Sancho.
Thank you.
Sancho. Okay.
Yeah. Sorry, guys.
He was training at an amateur club in Holland.
Yeah. But look, that's the thing. You can praise Ten Hag about that. About being so patient and willing to give them time and all these kind of things. But it's United as well. How much time are you going to give these players to show what they're capable of doing? Or should you say goodbye to those players and get better players in? Let's be honest. I'm not against Sancho. I'm not against Martial. At their best, they're very good players. But how many times were they at their best?
Yeah, sorry, I just want to add something on top of in terms of running out of steam. I don't think it's so much of running out of steam situation, because against Tottenham in the first half, you were pressing them like crazy and you'll win the ball really high. The amount of times I saw Pedro Porro come inside to receive and Mount was on him. Okay, but then I just think, for example, at Tottenham, he got out tacticked by Ange, because if you notice in the first half, their fullbacks were inside to receive the ball. And then you was finding it easy to have Mount on a player. But then when they started going wide and then Maddison came deep, your man marking, so your midfield went up, Casemiro was isolated, and it allowed Kulusevski and Son to find pockets in between the lines to receive the ball. Right. So I don't think it's so much I don't think it's so much about running out of steam. I just felt like he had one plan, and then when that plan didn't work, that was it.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
guys,
maybe that's where
I'm gonna wrap it up here. Yeah, absolutely. But guys, I'm going to wrap it up here. Big up to everybody who's locked in, man. It's been a very, very good show. Please do like the video, man. Honestly, guys have given their time up. Juan, Kabir, Luke, I appreciate you guys coming on, man. It's been a good one.
Thank you so much.
Thank
you, guys.
Cheers.
No worries. Make sure you guys follow them on their channel, weTalkAjax. And yeah, we may never know. We could have another chat about another Ajax player that comes, and we want to know what's the latest profile.
We've got a great young right back that you guys can take. Divan Wrench, he's quality. 50 million. Bargain.
Yeah, I don't know, man. I need to watch him first, because you did that with Anthony. So no. But listen, guys, take care. Bye. Yeah.